I am Anna Orr, and this is Community Connections airing on OROMIA11. Today we are talking about Suicide Awareness Month. This is going to be a powerful conversation where we are offering support, resources, and hopefully shedding a light on a very necessary conversation. Stay tuned. Amanda, I'm so excited to have you joining me today. Can you please introduce yourself to viewers and the organization that you represent today?
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Amanda Leininger, and I am the area director for the Minnesota chapter of the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention.
Can you talk to me, for those that are unassuming or unaware about what the nature of that work is? Can you talk to us about what the National Association for Suicide Prevention does?
Yeah, of course. So like I said, I'm the area director, which means that I'm the sole staff person for the state here, and I have the honor of working with our board of directors and our incredible volunteers. The mission of the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention is to save lives and bring hope to those affected by suicide. And we do so through kind of our four main pillars, which are research, advocacy efforts, prevention, education programming, and support for lost survivors. So we work all across the state in those four main areas.
I'm excited to have you join me today so that we can continue a very necessary conversation, seeing as this is Suicide Awareness Month, and we are always trying to prevent the preventable. Yeah. So I know that this is going to be not only an impactful conversation, but also a very necessary and timely one. Yeah. Can you talk to me about the history of your organization and give us a journey about how you guys came to be such a huge representation across the country?
Yeah, definitely. So AFSP was founded in 1987. A group of families came together. They had all lost someone to suicide, and they had a vision of establishing an organization that would focus on suicide research and prevention education efforts. They band together with scientists and formed what we now know today as AFSP. Their goal was really to build something that would be sustainable into the future, to continue the important work, even kind of after they might have stepped down. And we're really proud of the work that we do. Before our founding, there was no national nonprofit organization really focused on suicide prevention efforts, specifically through research, advocacy, and education. Here in Minnesota, we have had a presence with AFSP since the early 2000s, and we merged as one chapter, AFSP Minnesota, in early 2020. And across the country, we now have 74 chapters, including in Washington, D.C. and Puerto Rico.
Now let's talk a little bit about the multi-pronged approach that you guys take, supporting those that have lost someone to suicide.
Definitely. So we know that suicide is a complex public health issue. So AFSP works across sectors on a lot of different initiatives. We have a federal and state public policy and advocacy department. We educate the public through our prevention education programs. We support lost survivors through a variety of different programs, and we are the largest private funder of suicide prevention research across the globe. So we're focused on all four of those in all different areas.
Wow. Now, according to the Minnesota Department of Health, there's been a rise in suicide deaths across the state, specifically during the rise of COVID-19 and then subsequently after. Sheltering in place, things like that, transitions of losing jobs, different things like that, loved ones. People have found themselves in really terrible predicaments where they have been committing suicide a lot more often. Mm-hmm. How have you guys kind of worked to navigate to support that, the large increase of numbers here in the state of Minnesota? Well, I guess we can say nationally, seeing as you guys have such a large reach.
Yeah, definitely. So suicide is incredibly complex, and it's often it's always the convergence of many risk factors coming together. And what the pandemic did was really accentuate a lot of pre-existing socioeconomic and health disparities, especially in marginalized communities. And so we at AFSP are really focused on diversifying our programs and the initiatives that we do to ensure that we are culturally sensitive and inclusive. I think there's a lot of work that still needs to be done around the country. We have a few programs that we've developed for specific communities, including one in Spanish, one for a program called Soul Shop for Black churches, as well as one for the LGBTQ community. And I think continuing to try and reach those different communities is really important. And we also are really working to encourage safe messaging in the way that we speak about suicide. We try to encourage not to use the word committed suicide. It has negative connotations, and so being able to help inform the public in those ways will definitely help. We use phrases like die by suicide or take their own life or ended their life or killed themselves, and it's little things like that kind of across that whole area we can work together.
Can you talk to me about when the use of those phrases, committed suicide, like we just talked about? This is the first time I'm hearing this, so thank you for that information. I appreciate that. And I'm always excited to learn something new in return, not only along with viewers. When you guys are doing the education with younger groups, how do you talk to them about the language around that? Because I'm sure for somebody that may be dealing with suicidal ideations or who may have attempted prior, it maybe triggers them to hear those type of phrases or, have a negative association with them. But what does that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So in some of our programs that we're doing kind of on that prevention side of things, it's built into our programming, that safe messaging, where we'll talk through a little bit of some of the phrases that we encourage not to use and then some different ones. But it's also a little bit of knowing the time and the place. Sometimes it's not appropriate to address safe language, and allowing someone to speak and share their experiences is the right time. I think we as kind of you and your public role and others, I think helping to model that language is really important, and then knowing kind of when that time might be right to just kindly say, hey, I understand that might be a phrase that you've heard before, but we try not to use that phrase, and then giving again just some of those examples.
Thank you so much. That's very helpful.
Of course.
Now, this is a very, I'm sure, intense kind of work. What is your personal connection to this kind of work, and what keeps you going?
Definitely. It can be very heavy, but it's also very hopeful. I lost a few friends, including a pretty close friend, to suicide right after college, and it was incredibly difficult. We didn't talk about it. We didn't use the word suicide, and it was really hard for me to get through, and it really kind of kick-started my own journey with my personal mental health. I've been diagnosed with a few mental health conditions and have myself struggled with suicidal ideation, and it's been a beautiful blend of my personal passions and my professional background being in this role. I'd been really vocal in some of my friend groups kind of after some of my personal struggles and finding a great therapist that it's important to talk about what we're going through. It's okay not to be okay. You're not alone. Seeing a therapist is a sign of strength. I mean, I talked to mine yesterday about this interview, and she helped kind of calm my nerves and build me up. And so it's been really incredible getting to work with loss survivors, with attempt survivors, and people who are passionate about this cause, like yourself, who are taking that step and that courage to start the conversation. So it's been very rewarding. Hard some days, not gonna lie, some days it can be very heavy, but it's also incredibly rewarding.
I know that in many cultures that the conversation about mental health and therapy and people that are dying by suicide is such a taboo topic. And so many people are suffering in silence or feeling that they're so alone. And when you look at the numbers, we know statistically, right, that that's not true, that people are not alone in this. But I guess my question to you is, how do we start to reduce some of the stigma around these conversations so that we can begin to support and stand with those that are suffering?
Yeah, definitely. And this conversation is needed now more than ever. After seeing suicide rates decline in 2019 and 2020, we saw about a 5% increase in suicide deaths in 2021. And I think the biggest thing that we can do is talk is have open conversations. AFSP launched a campaign back in May for Mental Health Awareness Month called Talk Away the Dark. And it is a campaign that really focuses on the importance of having direct conversations and how by doing so we can share resources and have hopeful conversations. The campaign also shares, we have on our website some conversation starters, real convo as we call them, with some kind of tips of ways to start that conversation and has some examples of how that dialogue might go. We need to talk about our mental health the same way that we talk about our physical health. We might see a cardiologist if we have a heart condition, or someone to get our nails done, like you said when we were on the phone. And it's important that we seek help from a mental health professional when needed. And the campaign, another one of the kind of big goals that we have, is to strip away that shame and that stigma by talking about it. And we can do so by learning the warning signs, understanding the risk factors, and being brave to have those open conversations.
I appreciate that. As we shift just a little bit, I want to circle back to what you just mentioned. Let's start talking about some of the symptoms of someone that may be dealing with wanting to attempt suicide. Can you kind of help us with some warning signs so that if somebody is watching this right now and has someone that's a part of their life that has not said something vocally about what they're dealing with, how we can start to see maybe we should provide some support?
Absolutely. Thank you for asking that important question. Suicide warning signs can really be detected in kind of three big areas, and that's talk, behavior, and mood. People who are experiencing suicidal ideation may often speak directly or indirectly about taking their own life. They might make comments about feeling like they're a burden, or they feel trapped or overwhelmed, and they might even at times joke about killing themselves, and it's very important that we take that seriously. They also might display a varying number of behaviors that we can notice, and it's important to know the person that you're observing, but they might be drinking excessively, they might be using drugs more, they might be having trouble sleeping, whether that's insomnia or sleeping too much. They might be behaving recklessly or spending a lot of money. They might even give away all of their possessions. And then looking at mood, there's quite a few different moods that someone may be displaying. That could be apathy, rage, feeling of hopelessness or despair, all things you might kind of expect from someone who's feeling overwhelmed. But they also might display a sudden uptick in happiness, which can sometimes signify that they've decided on a plan and are now feeling relieved that they'll no longer be in pain. And that's a lot to take in. So I think really is important to just focus on trusting your gut and your instincts and observing the person that you care about. And even in yourself, if you see anything that just seems out of the ordinary or out of character, it's important to have a conversation and reach out to them.
I think that is so necessary. Oftentimes, like we said, people are suffering in silence and we don't know what to look for, or we feel that, I think also in youth, right? Well, youth can be moody. And so, we may start to dismiss this or that and not realize the severity of a situation somebody may be in. So it's important that you not only shared that information, but also helps us become alert, even if it isn't somebody in our direct circle. We said that this month is Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month. Can you talk to me about some of the programming that you guys have had at AFSP to support this month, but also keep the conversations going nationally?
Yeah, absolutely. So our mission and our work to save lives and bring hope to those affected by suicide matters all year round, but this month is a really great opportunity to shine a light on the resources that are available, to rally the public and the community to understand some of the roles that they can play in their community. Throughout September and even into October, we have our Out of the Darkness community walks. We have 9 here in Minnesota throughout the month, continuing into October, which are beautiful events where people come together and walk out of the darkness to show that there is hope after suicide, after an attempt, and just in the community. So those are continuing throughout October and across the country as well. We also have some prevention education programming going on. We are tabling at a few schools and other places, and again, that continues all throughout the year, but is definitely ramped up a little bit during this month. And we put out an action alert to our volunteer advocates, just asking them to email their legislators and share that this is important, share a little bit of their story. And then it's a little bit later in the year, but we do have an event called International Survivors of Suicide Loss Day in November, which we're starting to really kind of gear up for that. But that's a beautiful day right before Thanksgiving where loss survivors can come together and find connection and community and understanding in their grief before heading into the holiday season.
I really enjoy the titles that you all give these events. Walking Out of Darkness is very powerful to hear, but also I believe to see people doing is a beautiful sentiment to offer to survivors and those lost.
Yeah, they're incredibly powerful. This was my first walk season, and being able to see communities coming together. Of course, there's tears, there's heavy emotions, but when you're walking alongside your community and also walking alongside hope, it's very powerful.
Now, let us know how we can stay connected to AFSP and the amazing work that you guys are doing, but also start to get involved in the calendar and all the other cool things you guys have on the website to help us stay connected.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can stay connected with the Minnesota chapter specifically. We have a webpage. It's afsp.org/Minnesota. If you kind of scroll halfway down, there's a little bar of all of our upcoming events. So that stays pretty up to date as we schedule things. You can see all the details there and join us or register. On our website as well, there's an opportunity to sign up for our newsletter, which we send sometimes every other month, sometimes quarterly, kind of just depends on all the different activities going on. So if you get that newsletter, you'll see kind of how to stay connected with us. We're also always looking for more volunteers from across the state and every community. There's many ways, again, to get involved. It's kind of a choose your own adventure based on what sets your heart on fire and makes you feel good about the work you're doing. So there's an application you can fill out on our website, and that'll connect you to us and our volunteer coordinator. And then we are on social media. We're AFSP Minnesota on Facebook and Instagram. And then our national team is also all over social media as well, and they're AFSP National.
Okay. And lastly, I'm just going to have you take a second and look in this camera here and provide us with a call to action. Mm-hmm. If somebody is feeling lost or saying, I think there is somebody that can benefit in my life from the information shared today, how do we start to begin that conversation?
Yeah, definitely. If you or someone that you know is struggling or displaying any of the signs of being at risk for suicide, I encourage you to reach out to them, have an open and caring conversation. Trust your gut and assume that you're the only person who might reach out to them. And it's important to ask directly if someone is having thoughts of suicide. Research has shown that asking directly actually decreases the rates of suicide and the likelihood that someone will take their life. And if you are concerned that someone is struggling or thinking about this, or you yourself are struggling with suicidal ideations, the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline is available 24/7, 365. You can call or text that number any time of day. You can call if you're in crisis, if someone you love might be in crisis, or you can even just call that number to see what happens when you do. So don't be afraid to have those brave conversations, check in on those that you love, and know that it's okay not to be okay. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for joining me, and thank you for the amazing work that you do here across the greater state of Minnesota.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me and for starting this very important conversation and sharing it with all of your viewers.
Unfortunately, that is all the time that we have for today. This has been such an important episode to me, and I'm sure to some of you watching. I hope that something shared here from me or from Amanda has impacted you in such a powerful way that you begin the conversation with someone that you know and love. As always, I am Anna Orr. This has been Community Connections, airing on OROMIA11, and I look forward to connecting again with you soon.